On Larry King Now, a tribute to the iconic Joan Rivers.
And she did pave the way. She took the machete and went so we could all skip along behind her.
She never quit. She never gave up. And even when, a few things went wrong in her life or in her career, didn't stop her. She came back fighting.
What are you going to miss about her the most, Lily?
Oh, just her ribald self, but she was so good at heart. She had a huge heart, and as you said, she was so devoted to her friends.
I think she was an equal opportunity maker, funner, upper, if that's an expression.
Plus,
because she would say to me, Margaret, I know that you, just like me, were ugly in high school. And I was like, speak for yourself. If a joke is offensive, but it's also funny, it's unassailable. You know, as long as it's funny, it doesn't matter. And that was her brilliance.
all next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Today we are remembering the great Joan Rivers. With a heavy heart, we embark on this program. A tribute to a beloved and fearless entertainer, a tireless performer, a trailblazer, an icon, and a dear friend of mine. Joan Rivers was the queen of comedy. For years, she famously asked, "Can we talk?" Well, we can and we will. Joan would have wanted us to laugh, so we'll try to do a little of that too today. With me, another major comedic talent, Margaret Cho, who was at Joan's funeral this past weekend. We'll be joined later by more of Joan's friends and contemporaries, Don Rickles, Regis Philbin, Lily Tomlin, Ryan Seacrest, and the wonderful Jane Lynch. Seemed like you and she had do you have a mother-daughter relationship?
I think so. I think that she probably wanted to adopt me, maybe be her own sort of Angelina Jolie, sort of an octogenarian Angelina Jolie.
How did it start?
We met in the late 90s. I had been doing comedy in New York, and I got an award for my show, and she loved my show, and she wanted to present it to me, and so we met, and I was just so in love with her. I'd been in love with her since I saw her do a stand-up on Saturday Night Live. She hosted, I think, in 1983, and she just killed, and I always idolized her, and to finally meet her and have her be so warm and lovely to me, it was really powerful.
You wrote on Twitter after she died, "Like you, I was an ugly duckling, and then you taught me to become a swan, and we laughed because finally we were swans together."
Because she would say to me, Margaret, I know that you, just like me, were ugly in high school. And I was like, speak for yourself. But she really, I think she saw in me the humor that she had, and in that we were family, you know, because she thought that I was funny like her, we really became very close.
Do you think it took a lot of guts for her to be as caustic as she was, because women's stand-ups were a rarity?
Yes. I mean, even when she started, she wouldn't even use her real name, even had a stage name. Was it Pepper Anderson? What was it? What is it? Pepper Anderson? Something like that. Something very adorable and very 60s. But I think she was incredibly brave. And you knew that she did feel bad sometimes for things she said. You know, she was kind of afraid to say some of the things she said, but she just said it because she didn't have anything else to do. She didn't know what else to do but be funny. And
she had no drawn lines. She went overboard all the time.
All the time. Yeah. And the funeral was overboard, too.
I want to ask about that. Did she affect you?
Well, she and in our friendship, she had made so many jokes about me eating her dogs, because I'm Korean, that I was, we had this plan that I was going to take her to a restaurant that I found out in Los Angeles is a Korean restaurant, very secretly serves dog. Not on the menu, but I know how to get it. So I was going to make her go and eat it because she's been making fun of me for so long. And so she was absolutely down to do it. And that's the one thing that I regret, that I never got her to actually eat dog.
She wouldn't have done it.
I don't think she would have.
Another thing, I was talking about her the other day. You know, she was Phi Beta Kappa. She was valedictorian at Barnard.
Yeah.
She was brilliant. And to come up with that kind of humor, you have to be smart.
Yes. Yes.
Agreed?
Absolutely, because it's really about kind of knowing your audience and knowing how far you can go.
Correct.
And if a joke is offensive but it's also funny, it's unassailable. You know? As long as it's funny, it doesn't matter. And that was her brilliance.
How good a friend was she?
She was there for me when I had a terrible show in May. And she had performed, it was this big benefit that she had done the year before, and they hated her. And so they hired me the next year, and they hated me worse. And so I reached out to her, and I was like, what did I do? They hated you, and they hated me. What am I gonna do? And she was like, don't worry. She gave me such a great pep talk. That was the thing. She knew how bad it felt for a comic. She knew how bad it felt to have a bad show. And she could lift you right up out of it. And I lost the person that can do that for me.
Okay, tell me about the funeral.
Well, it was really fabulous.
There's the New York City Gay Men's Chorus, the rabbi.
Were amazing. The rabbi did go on a little long, which she did not want, but that was okay.
Deborah Norville, no one knew she was a friend of Deborah Norville's.
That's what we were all freaking out about. It's like, why didn't you tell us you were friends with her? But the best, my favorite speaker was not credited here, Howard Stern, who came up and everybody was crying, weeping. He said, Joan Rivers had such a dry pussy. And everybody in the temple, nobody knew exactly what to do because we were still at a funeral. So it was this very long, amazing joke that him and Joan shared, and I don't know. I'd never been to a funeral like that. I think Joan Rivers really put the fun in funeral.
She said about her funeral, I want my funeral to be a big show business affair, lights, cameras, action. A paragraph-long director said, I want paparazzi, I want publicists making a scene. I want it to be Hollywood all the way. I don't want some rabbi rambling on. And he did,
He
right?
did ramble a bit.
She was not present at her funeral, right? She was.
No, they had cremated her on Saturday, and what was great, though, is that, she had her special gardenia perfume, and everybody had sprayed it all over so you could smell her. And then these beautiful arrangements of gardenias, and you could just smell her, but that she wasn't there. The void was so deeply felt because there were so many people who loved her, and it really showed that she was gone. And that, I think, was the hardest part, is that we were surrounded by all of these signs of her and symbols of her and smells of her, and she was not there.
Hugh Jackman sang.
He was great.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
He was beautiful. And there was not a dry eye in the house. And I think it was also the best place to be if you were a good-looking gay man, because there was the richest gay men in the world all coming together. I mean, I was like, if I was a gay man, I would have definitely kept my grinder turned on.
What would Joan have thought of it?
I think she would have loved it. I think she would have appreciated the fact that most of us decided to come to the funeral after working, because there was mostly comics. So it was myself and Jeffrey Ross and Jen Kirkman and all these people who were like working the night before, late, coming off stage and getting on red eyes and going to New York, saying we have to be there. And I saw Jeff Ross there, and he was weeping, and he was like, I loved her, and like we all did.
How did she relate so well to young audiences?
I think because she was just unafraid. And I think that is what youth is, fearlessness. That kind of fearlessness that is unabashed, it's celebratory, it celebrates life. She was, I think, in her way, in her comic way, kind of immortal. She felt strength there, and that was so youthful, so that she really connected with young people from that.
She once said to me she discovered that she was a little older than me, and she thought no one was older than me. Coming up, Margaret and I will talk to Regis Philbin about classic Joan. Stay with us. We're now joined by my friend, the great Regis Philbin, calling us from New York. Regis, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Larry. I wish it was a better time, but
yeah,
glad to be with you.
I want to read something Joan was quoted as saying. She said, I'll kill myself if the doctor says my condition is terminal. I would not want to live if I could not perform. It's in my will. I'm not to be revived unless I can do an hour of stand-up. Was that classic Joan?
That is really classic Joan. And I guess that's kind of what happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow, boy, knocks you out when you hear it from her,
At her funeral on Sunday, Howard Stern said that she was a troublemaker, trailblazer, pioneer for comics everywhere, never apologizing, never caring what people thought. What do you think kept her going for so long? I mean, the fact that she stayed on top forever.
She never quit. She never gave up. She was always ready and always in there, you know. She loved it. She just loved it, and that's what kept her going. And even when, you know, a few things went wrong in her life or in her career, didn't stop her. She came back fighting, you know.
Her noted plastic surgery became a focal point in her later years. You think she made a lot of fun of it? Do you think she used that to her advantage in a sense, Regis?
Yeah, I really do. I thought, you know, I thought it was a beautiful job. She looked great. I thought she came out of it well.
I thought she looked great.
Beautiful.
Margaret?
I mean, I think her feeling is that even if you weren't born with it, you could buy it, and that still meant it's yours. So
yeah, why not pay it? It's all up to her.
Yeah.
And she did the best with it, you know?
Yeah.
She really did. And it made her feel good. That's fine. That only helped her be better, you know?
And there was a soft side to Joan. You know, she was a great pal, and you knew that, Reg.
Yeah, sure, there was. If you had a problem and you ran into her and spent some time telling her about it, she'd cheer you up, she'd solve the problem. You know, she'd do all these things.
She remember, too, if you had a problem the last time you saw her, she would ask about it. Or, you know, she was always really into her friendships. She worked hard on maintaining her friendships. And I thought that was beautiful.
Oh, she did. I mean, she had those parties over there at that beautiful apartment on Fifth Avenue, and everybody had a good time, and she had the best time. And I'll always remember that lavish wedding that she gave for Melissa, you know, at Plaza Hotel here in New York. And we all arrived and were rushing into the reception area. And while we were waiting for everybody to get there, we were sipping champagne and listening to some soft harp music that they were playing. And then when we finally were all seated and the wedding was about to begin, the soft music abruptly ended. And Joan came down the aisle to the song, "Hey, Big Spender." And everybody laughed their tails off. And that was her being her, you know?
Yeah.
She's just a great lady.
They sang that song yesterday at her funeral, too. The gay men's chorus sang, "Hey, Big Spender," and there was not a dry eye or seat in the house.
Another thing, Reed, she was very New York.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure she was. Well, you know, it's funny. I met her out in L.A. in the late 60s or early 70s. I forget when it was, but it was early in those years. And, you know, I mean, you could tell that this is what she wanted. And she had to have for herself. And she made it happen. You know, and let me tell you something, Larry. I can't believe she's gone. I just cannot believe that Joan Rivers is not with us anymore.
So many people have said that.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to believe that, you know, she was taken out of here like this.
Yes.
I just can't believe it happening.
Reed, thanks so much. See you soon. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, Larry, thank you very much. Nice to talk with you, Margaret.
Bye, Regis.
Anyway, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Good luck
Regis.
to everybody.
Be well.
I will. Bye-bye.
Up next, the one and only Lily Tomlin joins me via Skype. We'll chat about their decades-long friendship after the break. We're now joined by one of the great comedians and actresses of ever, Lily Tomlin, one of my all-time favorites. How did you first meet Joan, Lily?
I met Joan when I was at the upstairs, the downstairs in New York. I was in the Review, and Joan was already well known because of Carson. She'd been on Carson, and she was already quite a big hit. And I used to come down from the Review upstairs, and I'd stand in the stairwell with the door cracked and listen to Joan and just crack up, you know. And she'd say to me, "If you're going to stand in the stairwell, you can't break out laughing so loud."
She was revolutionary more than just being a woman on stage. There had been some women stand-ups, Jean Carroll and Belle Barth was a famous stand-up. She was more than that, right?
Yes, I think so, yeah. I mean, just in terms of the, well, just the history of her life, her ups and downs and the stuff she went through. and the fact that she just absolutely fought her way back every time. And I can't imagine how she endured as she did, and she'd still be enduring. I mean, it wasn't like it was a challenge for her. I think she thrived on it.
And she never was part of the boys' club, was she? She had a lot of girlfriends. She wasn't hanging around with the guys.
I don't think any female ever gets to be a really part of the boys' club, hangs out at, Cantor's or Nate Nell's or wherever the guys used to hang out. In the old days, Dorothy Parker, of course, was part of the Algonquin Circle, but that was more literary.
Right.
But no, I think Joan was always pretty isolated in terms of her own direction, how she was going to go for it, and she was fairly fearless.
She had great girlfriends. I know Cindy Adams very well, and Deborah Norville and others were great pals of hers, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. I mean, I like to consider myself a pal of hers too, but I don't think I was one of the total inner circle. I felt like I was connected to her, though, from all those years back, all that time. I knew Melissa when she was born, and Edgar, and the whole family. I kind of was coming along behind Joan at some point, and I'd go on her daily shows. She'd have a talk show. She always seemed to get a show. No matter what she
did.
She'd get another show. And we had a funny thing, Larry. We'd write emails to each other and carry on and sort of make up stuff between us. Like she called me, she had Sabrina call me one day, her assistant, and say that Joan wants you to watch the show tomorrow night. This was Joan and Melissa, because she took something from your lives and used it on her show. And so I'm dressed for my series right now. So, and so Sabrina called, and so I started a whole conversation saying, well, I'm glad you warned me, Sabrina, because I can call my lawyer in the morning and start the suit for co-opting me in any way whatsoever on her show. And we wrote emails back and forth. She'd say, I know you're off your meds, and I forgive you for what you've said. And on and on. I tell you, we would be convulsive. I'd read the thing to my friend who worked with me in the office, and we would be convulsive. We couldn't read two words. We'd just be spastic.
She was funny.
Yeah.
She was very devoted to her family.
She was so kind to my brother, who's not even in the business. She just always asked about him, always responded to him if he emailed her. My brother took her death harder than I did, I swear to heaven. He was in tears for 2 or 3 days. He lives in Nashville, but when he came, we went on her show once. My brother and my mother came. Joan surprised me, and brought my mother and brother on, and my brother had on Ernestine's wig. He said he was Ernie, Ernestine's brother, and my mother, and she said to my mom, well, what did you raise your kids to be? And she said, well, I raised him to be president. And Joan says, well, he seems more like the first lady. Oh, it was really fun. Stuff that went on.
Frank Sinatra told me once, there's a lot to be said for longevity. How do you explain Joan's incredible longevity in the business?
She fought her way back every time she had a reversal. I mean, to go through what she went through all those times, I mean, with Edgar's suicide, the whole fracas with Johnny Carson, all the things that went on. And then she made a fortune. She built an empire for Melissa, really. She wanted to make sure Melissa was taken care of.
What are you gonna miss about her the most, Lily?
Oh, just her ribald self and her raunchy, audacious, outspoken, but she was so good at heart. She had a huge heart, and as you said, she was so devoted to her friends. She was very, very involved with Kathy Griffin. I mean, just looking at her as a young stand-up similar to herself, who was coming along. the movie she made about herself was fearless and kind of astonishing, and
Yeah, she was incredible.
you just miss her presence. That's all. Just her out. I'd see her. I remember back in the in the early anti-fur days, I'd see her in a fur coat, and I'd start to say something about it, and she'd say, "I got the suicide notes in the lining, sewn in the lining."
Hey, Lily, thanks a lot. Go back to work. We appreciate it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Lily.
I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks.
Coming up, I'm chatting with Don Rickles and Ryan Seacrest about their favorite memories of Joan, and Margaret Cho will rejoin us in the studio. We're celebrating the life and career of Joan Rivers today. Margaret Cho is with me in studio, and with us on the phone, the legendary comedian and my friend for over 50 years, the great Don Rickles. Don, how are you today?
Okay, but cheer up. It wasn't 50, Larry. It was about, seems to me like 109.
You've known Joan for decades.
Yes, I do.
How did she come to open for you, two comedians back to back? How did that work out?
Oh, well, wonderful. We had great times together. Those things, the chemistry works good, and the people that adore her were always in my corner also. So we always had a good time together, and she was very generous with her personality and being together with Barbara, my wife. We always had a pleasant, good times together.
Did you ever flip a coin? Was she ever going to close?
We're not a football team, Larry. We flip a coin. But listen, I got to tell you, Joan was, it's hard to believe that she's gone because she was a good friend to me and I to her. And we always had great times together. And on the road in Tennessee, there was once a fire in the hotel. It was engines outside, and both of us were in pajamas. So I'll never forget that. And we were standing by the fire trucks, and we did 20 minutes for the firemen, the two of us. But she's always been filled with friendship, and I loved her for that. And she was always a booster, and an eye for her. And,
what do you make of the controversy with Johnny Carson? He never spoke to her again after she took the job with Fox.
Johnny was one of the greats of our time in talk show things. He was magnificent, in my opinion. And I just think that they rubbed each other the wrong way at the time. And unfortunately, Joan got in his way at the wrong. Everything is timing, and she must have said something because he was a very sensitive guy, and God rest his soul. He must have just got a little teed off a bit. I wasn't there. I don't know the details, but knowing Johnny, I imagine that she said something that probably didn't strike him right. And unfortunately, because Joan wasn't a girl looking to
I think he expected a call from her before she signed.
Well, he didn't call, so Rickles.
And how are you, Donald? How are you feeling?
Very bad. Talking to you is from an oxygen tank. It's nice that you've given such a tribute to this lady because
stop.
Joan, she's gone, rest her soul. But,
thanks, Don.
Thank you, and Miss Chow, is that what they call you?
Cho.
Cho.
Thanks, Don.
Good luck to you, sweetie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Larry, take care. Larry.
Yeah.
Okay? Rip up my number. Take care of yourself.
Goodbye, Don. We're joined now by Ryan Seacrest, my dear friend. He's on the line from New York. Ryan, you worked with Joan at the E! Network for many years. You have a lot of memories of that?
Yeah, I do, Larry. I remember watching her over the years and seeing her on the E! red carpet and then meeting her for the first time on the red carpet, which you'll never forget when you meet Joan out on the red carpet. But I do remember her coming in each week to tape the show The Fashion Police. And on those days when she would be in the office, the whole place was abuzz that Joan was there. She came ready with her shtick and her act, and she just loved to crack a joke. I remember times I'd be on the radio live and have to run out for a bathroom break during a long song, and Joan would be in the hallway, and you knew she was going to come at you with something. And she would say, hey, Ryan, what are you doing? You're trying to tiptoe by her, and you're caught by Joan. And she'd go, I really love your shirt because it's come in men's I mean, she would just say anything like that, and that was her amazing talent. She always makes you smile and laugh.
She poked fun at you a lot, didn't she?
She did. Yeah, she did. But I tell you, I think she was an equal opportunity maker, funner, upper, if that's an expression.
She was. All right, now, you are now famous on the red carpet. She made the red carpet, I guess, famous. What did she do that others didn't do?
She would say whatever was on your mind that you probably wouldn't say. She would actually say it. I mean, the things that would come out of her mouth that you would feel terrible thinking about, you might think in your own head, but she had no issue. She was so brave. She would say it, not only say it on the air, she'd say it to your face.
But she loved the glamour. I think she loved the glamour of the red carpet. I mean, for her, it was really a fairy tale. She loved Cinderella, and she loved the fantasy, and that people were getting dressed up and all these stars. And so I think that's what people loved about the red carpet stuff she did.
I think the glamour is a good point. There is something special, and there is a fairy tale to all of it. You know, as a kid that didn't grow up in or near Hollywood, to have the opportunity to be out there talking to movie stars right before they're going to go in and possibly win an Oscar, or to talk to an artist that you've been playing on the air that may win their first Grammy, there is something just so special about it. I mean, that plus as a broadcaster, the fact that you never know who's going to come up to you, and you certainly never know what they're going to say, I think that adds to the excitement for me.
Ryan, thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.
Larry, it's a pleasure. You guys take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Margaret, in closing, what is her legacy going to be?
Her legacy is really a gift to all the female comics who loved her and worshipped her, inspired her. Me being on here today is her final gift to me. And I think that it's true for all of us who are getting to talk to you and talk to the world about what an amazing woman she was.
You're a doll, Margaret. Thanks to the lovely Margaret Cho. In our final segment, another comedic force, Jane Lynch, on what Joan did for women in comedy. Don't click away. With me, another major comedic talent, Jane Lynch. How did you and Joan, did you connect early?
I was asked to sit in for Pierce Morgan, and they said, who do you want to interview? And I said, I would love to interview Joan Rivers. So we had Joan and Melissa on. And so I really got to know her through that interview. And she was very nervous. I recall that she showed up, made up ready, and ready to go. And she had index cards with her. And and I said, you said, what are we going to talk about? I said, well, I'll just throw you some softball questions about your life, and I want to know more about you too. So I'd love to know, more personal stuff. And she said, well, I've got some jokes, and she had her stack of index cards, and she said, I'm going to do this one, and this one, and I was like, fine, I'll tee you up. That'll be great, but I'd love to also talk about, your personal life. And unprompted, she talked about how the man she was with after Edgar, her husband who committed suicide, was the great love of her life. And I didn't know that. That might actually be the first time.
She didn't identify him.
She won't say, she wouldn't say who it was. And I believe he passed away. But yeah, he was the great love of her life.
But no, we don't have pictures of who this was?
No, we don't have pictures. We don't know his name.
Wow. Wonder why.
I don't know. Maybe she wanted to keep that special and precious. And
the personal side of her was very giving,
yes,
loyal, extremely bright.
Well, you knew her personally for a long, long time. Yeah. I loved how she continually stayed relevant.
Oh, yeah.
She embraced social media.
Kids loved her.
Yeah, that's why kids loved her. I heard she was on Vine. One of your producers told me she was also on Vine, which I don't even understand.
At her funeral this past weekend, her friend Cindy Adams described her as brassy in public, classy in private. She was that, wasn't she?
Yeah. She was one of those people. She was very interested in you personally. I also did her reality show where I went out to dinner at a big table with Joan and Lily Tomlin and a bunch of other people, and it was a huge night for me. But she was very classy, making sure everybody was having a good time, and the way she dealt with her people was so lovely. You could tell everybody was devoted to her and loved her very much. You
didn't do stand-up.
No.
So how do you look upon her with regard to women in comedy?
Yeah, well, you go back. I remember her being on The Tonight Show. I remember Lily Tomlin and Phyllis Diller, and it was such a boys' club. I guess you could argue it still is a stand-up comedy. And in order for a woman to, have a seat at the table, they had to kind of knock themselves down as sex objects. You know, I can't get a date, I'm so ugly, and my husband won't, you know, that kind of a thing. And so that's kind of where her comedy started, was this severe self-deprecation. And I was always, as a kid, thinking, why is she saying she's so ugly? I thought she was so pretty.
Yeah, she was.
She was so pretty, and she was so alive and so bright, and you could see Johnny Carson just loved her. And,
That was sad the way that ended.
It was sad the way that ended. You know, you hope that, you know, their energies met as she left this planet, and maybe they you know, had some kind
You would have liked to work with her more, I
Oh
guess.
my gosh, that would have been great. Yeah, she was one of those people that, you know, as I watched television as a kid, I was like, that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do. I want to make people laugh.
Do you love to work?
I love it. I would work every day if I could.
Why?
I enjoyed. Oh gosh, I don't know. There's something about. Oh God, how do you explain? How do you put into words what you're compelled to do? That every molecule in your person reaches toward. You know, and I know that's what it was for her. And I mean, she had energy that makes I pale in comparison.
The documentary you mentioned, A Piece of Work.
Yeah.
She controlled that, but let everything out. That
Yeah,
was
she
warts
sure
and
did.
all. She did not look great in all parts. of
No,
that.
she didn't, and you know, she had a tough time with her manager, and
Yeah.
that was a really, but it showed her loyalty to him, how she took care of him. to
As a
make
gay
people laugh.
woman, didn't she always stand up in the?
She did. She was an ally before many people were. You know, she was one of those who was, you know, way back when was like, love is love. And that was, yeah, completely appreciated. In fact, in her reality show, the episode I was on, she was having a little flirtation with a woman.
Yeah, she kissed the woman,
Yeah,
right?
she kissed the woman. It
And
was
she
really
said,
great.
as I get it, you were at that dinner party,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And she said, at this point, all the men I go out with remind me of my father, dead. I figured I might as well try at this point. Maybe I've been missing something.
Yeah, right.
At least she went without having to go through cancer.
Oh, I know. In a way, you go, what a blessing to just kind
Because
of.
the last years of life sometimes are
It
terrible.
was so hard, that kind of, pardon the phrase, circling the drain, which is just, it's such a tough. I watched my parents. My dad died of cancer. My mother had a couple of years that were really tough,
Mine too.
and it breaks your heart. And you know, if I can just kind of one day lift out of my body and go away, that would be kind of nice.
No, death is cruel. I mean,
It
of
sure
course,
can be, yeah.
I wanted to say something more to her.
Yeah.
Why didn't
I think you still can.
You do?
Oh, yeah. I
Oh,
think
what do you believe?
I think that energy lives, and she might not be in that gorgeous package anymore, but she's right here.
Her energy, you believe that?
Oh, I know it.
And she has consciousness, do you think?
It's not our. I think I don't know this for a fact, but you know, I'm so fascinated in this. But I don't believe it's our human consciousness. We have these big egos that help us navigate the density of this planet. But I believe there's more subtler realms, and people call them astral realms. And I think what survives is the love.
And what she brought us, we have to be thankful for.
Yeah, we do.
Gift of
Like with
laughter.
Robin Williams too. I mean, I think Robin Williams and Joan Rivers, they're the greatest gifts we have here on earth, and dogs.
Dogs.
People who make us laugh and who love us unconditionally.
She said she didn't like it when women thanked her for the doors she opened, because she said, I'm still opening doors.
Yeah. It was never over for her. I think that's how she felt. And I got that from the documentary too. I think she always felt that she had to fight to get to the next level. You know, I got to fight to get to, I have to, you know, knock down this obstacle. I have to burst through this ceiling. You know, I definitely, I saw that she had that concept of what it was.
What do you think her legacy will be?
She did pave the way. She took the machete and went so we could all skip along behind her.
Well said, Jane.
Thanks.
A big thanks to my guests, Don Rickles, Regis Philbin, Ryan Seacrest, Jane Lynch, Lily Tomlin, and Margaret Cho. And to my darling Joni, we'll forever miss you. See you next time.